Okay, hi YouTube. Yeah, you know the drill. Scary animation by 1C Horror Story. Oh my fuck! I am stupid. 1C Horror Story Animated English Nabil. Okay, that was dumb. Whatever. Okay, this one's called The Hidden Room in the Apartment Horror Story Animated, and yeah, link in the description for those guys' channel. And yeah, here we go.
It happened when I was in college. One of my friends rented an apartment. Although the apartment was very small and old, and the facilities were not good enough, he set his furniture and started to unpack his stuff. Since then, he kept feeling something strange for any reason.
This man does look like Baldi, except you have hair and blue eyes.
However, he was tired from moving in and he had a class the next day, so he decided to go to sleep. When he was about to lie down on the bed, he heard a knocking sound on the door. Did someone come? He approached the front door, but there was no one outside. Thinking it was someone's prank, he went back to sleep. But then he heard a sound again. Knock, knock.
If that happens to me, I'm just going to dip. Like, boy, who the fuck? Nah, I'm not just, slowly gonna open the door. I'm gonna break that fucking thing, and I'm gonna find who's pissing me off. And once I find them, I'm gonna knock them out with a fucking shovel. Like, leave me alone, you uncultured swine. Jeez.
Being annoyed, he decided to wake up and waited next to the front door to see who was knocking on his door. And no doubt he heard a knock again. However, he realized that the source of the sound was strange. This time, the sound was heard from the wall next to the bedroom. Next to the bedroom is the kitchen. What's in the kitchen? He went to the kitchen and looked around, but nothing was found. He got mad, so he ended up waiting in the kitchen until the sound to come out again. And this time, the sound came from his bedroom.
Oh my God, this
Scared
is
by the
intense.
strange phenomenon, he went out of the apartment and looked inside the house. The lights in all the rooms were on except for one window. And there was a window in the space that he thought was just a wall. The window was between the kitchen and the bedroom. He was curious, so went back into the apartment and began to find a way to get into it. He knocked on the wall of the bedroom to find where the door was, but he couldn't find any strange parts, and it was just the same of the kitchen. Finally, the last place he looked for was the stairs. He slowly walked up the stairs, knocking on each wall. Soon, a clear sound was heard. Out of curiosity, he ripped the wallpaper off that part and looked inside, but the inside was blocked with a window. It was so dark that he could not see anything inside. In addition, he eventually felt strange, so he ended up sleeping in his girlfriend's house that day. Then the next morning, he went back.
Shouldn't you have called like the landlord up? Shouldn't you like have hit him up or something? Call the police, man. Like, if you see a hidden door in your apartment, it's not there for no reason, man. It's not. If there is something hidden from you in your own apartment, that's bad. This dude found a hidden door in his own apartment and did nothing but go to his girlfriend's house. Now that's just dumb, What if you just release some demonic dude or something, man? Call the police.
Back to the room with his girlfriend. When he lit the inside with a flashlight, he could see the completely worn, rusty bed, a broken toilet, and sink. As soon as he saw the window, there was a white bone in old clothes. The two ran out screaming in fear and reported to the police. They arrived soon after and ripped off all the secret room, and one body was found inside that was rotten and left only a bone. Later, it turned out that the body was a man who went missing around the time this apartment was built. He was rumored to have raped the constructionist's daughter, and the owner always would say that he's going to get revenge for her. The police investigated the owner after that man's missing. However, since there was no evidence, he was soon released and then died shortly after. The police reported that the man had scratched the wall so that his fingernails were all broken, and the wall was covered with blood. But I still have one question that cannot be solved. So, who made that knocking sound in his apartment?
That was nice. I'm gonna. Can you guys shut the fuck? Oh my god, my parrots are so annoying, man. Give me one reason why I shouldn't crush you right now. Exactly. Okay guys, animation number 2. This is called this is by Animated Horror. Hang on, let's see. Animated Horror Flicks, and it's called, the video is called Why I'll Never Work at Late Night Shifts Again.
This happened to me a couple of years ago during my final year of law school, and I just started volunteering at a legal clinic to gain some experience before I graduated. I'll admit it took some getting used to the new job, and although most of the cases were regarding custody battles and disputes between landlords and their tenants, I hoped that one day the experience would help me land a job at one of the top law firms in the city. It was Social Friday, and I was working a little later than usual, trying desperately to wrap up some paperwork regarding my latest case. Apparently, the building owner had failed to comply with certain safety regulations and was now on the hook for a hefty fine. However, my boss managed to negotiate a killer deal on rent in exchange for legal representation. I wasn't planning on pulling an all-nighter, but I decided I would stay at the office for as long as it took to free up my weekend. Besides, I was only a 20-minute Uber ride away from my apartment, so I wasn't too worried. After indulging in a short coffee break, I decided to head outside for a quick smoke and get some fresh air to clear my head.
My guy said quick smoke for fresh air. Who calls smoking getting fresh air? You're basically harming your lungs, man, and you're calling it fresh air. You know what, whatever.
I guess I must have forgotten how late it was, because after peeking through the window and observing the empty street, the idea of going outside at night alone seemed like a really bad idea. I was too lazy to head for the roof, so I decided not to go outside at all and just smoked my cigarette at the end of the hallway, which I'm glad I did, because just a few moments later, I began hearing someone moving around outside. The last thing I...
Hello? Is anybody there? Hello? Well, this man's just not doing anything.
wanted to do is draw any attention to myself, so I finished my cigarette and quietly headed back upstairs. As I reached the office, I immediately noticed something odd. I don't remember exactly if it was the sound of the bustling city or the sharp chill from outside, but either way, it drew my attention to one of the large windows, which was slightly open, and I remember thinking it was strange that I hadn't noticed it before. Fortunately, the windows didn't open very wide, so I had no immediate cause for concern, but as I closed the window, I couldn't shake this feeling of being watched, which is when I noticed someone outside on the street looking at me.
Sir, can I help you? Can I help you, sir? No, then I'm calling the police. This is what I will do. I don't know about this guy, but I would do this. Do you need some help? Can I get something for you? No? You're just gonna stare at me? Well, I'm gonna go down there and knock your ass out. No, you keep staring at me, I'm knocking you out.
It was too dark to make out any distinguishing features, but my gut told me it was someone from the street. Eventually, he started gesturing something like he wanted to enter the building. I gestured back that I wasn't interested, but he just responded with the same gesture and seemed oddly persistent. I knew it was cold outside, but there was no way I was going to open the door to a complete stranger, so I just ignored him and headed back to my desk, where I glanced at the clock and wondered if I should be heading back. I was about to reach for my phone before suddenly being interrupted by an alarm of some kind. It wasn't very loud, but I was quite sure it wasn't coming from a cell phone or a clock. Eventually, I found the culprit to be a smoke alarm, which was very strange, considering there was no evidence of any fire or smoke. I guess it had been a long time since anyone bothered to replace the batteries, because it went silent just after a few seconds, which was quickly preceded by a loud knock on the door downstairs. Admittedly, it was very surprising to receive any visitors at that hour, but then again, the clinic was located in a rather sketchy part of town, and had its fair share of hobos and troublemakers. I was hesitant to even approach the front door at first. Not because I didn't know who it was, but the knocking sounded more like someone trying to force their way in, or at least get my attention. I looked outside the window, but couldn't see anyone, and against my better judgment, I finally gave in and headed downstairs to see if it was a matter for the police. However, by the time I got there, the knocking had already stopped, and I was met with a quiet, empty hallway and no obvious signs of disturbance. That's when it really hit me. Maybe it was time to be getting back home. It wasn't too late to binge some Netflix and pass out on the sofa. It was Friday night after all. So I hailed an Uber and prepared for a safe ride home. But as I turned off the lights to the office, I began hearing the loud knock on the door again. I just stood there in silence until eventually the knocking stopped, and I had a pretty good idea who it was at that point. So I returned to the window, not at all surprised to see the same homeless guy outside, facing the building. My patience was running low, and I really didn't want this guy lurking around outside when my Uber arrived. So I tried to gesture for him to just leave me alone, which is when I realized something that gave me the chills. I could hear knocking on the door again. It wasn't the guy on the street. It was someone else, which I thought was strange because I hadn't witnessed any interaction between the homeless man on the street and whoever it was knocking on the door. In fact, he didn't seem to acknowledge that anyone was at the door at all, and continued with the same gesture as before. What did it mean? My Uber driver was just a few minutes out, so I was going to have to approach the door and continue with the same gesture as before. What did it mean? My Uber driver was just a few minutes out, so I was going to have to approach the door eventually, but just as before, as soon as I got to the hallway, the knocking stopped and everything went completely silent. I took one deep breath and cautiously walked towards the door as I endured the chill that suddenly enveloped the hallway. Once again, I peered through the window and observed just an empty street. No sign of anyone, not even a homeless guy, which oddly enough made me feel even more anxious as I inserted the key in the door. I had a really bad feeling about what was on the other side, but it was nothing compared to the horror of what happened next, as I witnessed something truly terrifying emerge at the end of the hallway that I simply can't explain.
What is now? I'm going to.
History trivia time. What would happen if the Romans fight with the Spartans?
As I came to, I was met with the homeless man who was mumbling something that was difficult to understand. Eventually, I figured out that he was deaf and also had trouble with his speech. I had no recollection of what happened when the light blew out, or how I got outside. Only that the homeless man found me this way, after fleeing from a car that he thought was the police. When I asked him about the gestures he was making, he told me that while he was collecting cans from the trash, he witnessed someone attempting to escape through the window. He tried to warn me about what he saw, but was unable to get my attention. That's when I realized this whole time I'd mistakenly thought someone was trying to get in, when in fact, someone or something was trying to escape. I guess despite the drama of that night, the kind, homeless man just wanted some company and indulged me with a story regarding the old building. From what I understood, a few decades ago, it used to be a factory, but there was a fire, and since there were no proper fire escapes installed, one of the workers remained trapped inside and was engulfed by the flames. Something about the story somehow echoed the strange events of that night, and I didn't tell anyone about what happened. The hardest part was trying to explain to my boss how the door was still locked, even while the keys remained on the inside. Anyway, I assumed the building was haunted, so I avoided working late nights after that, and never worked alone.
I mean, like, that's a good thing to do, but you should have done that like a long time ago. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching. If you want more, subscribe. If you like this video, just like the video, and yeah, have a nice day.